I'm Bill.
And I'm Ted.
And we're Classic Movie Banter.
Whoa.
Now dig on this.
Whoa! Whoa!
Whoa!
Hey! Whoa!
Welcome to Classic Movie Banter. You know that podcast?
I'm about to say, drop the voice. We're not doing a whole episode. Like,
I can't do it.
It's
too
so
funny.
stupid.
Oh, man.
Could you imagine being on set and they keep this up the whole fucking time? Like, imagine like sitting at the extras table, you're having lunch with Keanu and all that.
Imagine like you're about to go to bed and how hoarse your voice is. You're like, ugh.
Do you reckon people actually talk like that? Like, I've been to California. I've never met anyone like that. Like, do they actually like 24/7 sound like that, Brenton?
Guys, can you tweet at us and let us know?
The Valley accent, is it really that bad?
Is it really a thing?
Uh,
Maybe we should just change our accents and just talk like this from now on. Like, oh man, that was such a good movie. Yeah.
Well, Brenton's finding his new identity. I'm here to introduce the listeners to Classic Movie Banter.
You know that show?
This is
Where
a show.
me, that guy,
Shut up! I want to
Brenton.
do it for once. Shut up. All right.
Oh,
what,
no.
What even is
no,
it?
this is my thing. No.
Oh, well, fine.
I'm here to welcome you, welcome you to Classic Movie Banter. You know that podcast where me, that dude, Brenton, and that other dude over there, Nathan.
Whoa.
We talk about films that are 20 years or older. And we tell you, our lovely listeners, whether they're still worth watching today or not. Like if you threw them into a telephone box that ended up being a time machine and sent them back to the Jurassic period to get hit by a meteor.
So, listeners, you can read the title. You know what we're here to do today. You know why you're here. We're here to talk about Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. What year did this come out, Brenton?
Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, released in 1989. It is an American science fiction comedy film, and it was directed by Stephen Herrick, who also directed, funnily enough, like there wasn't many films on his filmography that I was like, oh, I can say something fun about that. But there is one. Stephen directed the remake of 101 Dalmatians, which starred
really?
Glenn Close and released in 96.
I'm not fucking with you. I literally watched that last week.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I just like for casual viewing. I got desperate. I'm like, what's on Disney Plus? And I watched
Before
it.
you say your opinion, I remember as a kid like having that on video. And I didn't love it all that much. Is it a shit movie, Nathan?
It's no good, Brenton. It really is no good. You know what? The first half is fine, but then the second half just turns into like a Home Alone movie, but with dogs.
Jeff Daniels is Roger in that, right?
He is. Jeff Daniels is in it, and he's in it. He hasn't got much to do. There's a scene where he gets thrown into like the water when like a dog has got him by the leash, but that's really it.
Oh, that's right. Do they do I can't remember, but do they do the whole scene where Pongo and Purdy like bloody wrap the two around each other? And what a time. Do you reckon dogs actually
Do you know Arthur Weasley plays one of them?
Does he?
Do you know those two henchmen? They're played by Arthur Weasley and Hugh Laurie.
That's right. That's so right.
It's such a weird combo, and I don't know why that's a thing.
Nathan, do you think that dogs in real life that want to get it on, do you think that they go, hey, like, I can see you, I've seen you on my dog walks, you know, every day. Let's get together and wrap our owners together and try and get them to get it on as well, so then we can, you know, get it on and have 101 fucking babies? Do you think that that's a thing that happens? It happened to me. That's why I'm just asking.
But I got confused because my memory of that thought, oh no, the one mother has to birth 100 Dalmatians, but it's not. She only has like 15. It's only because other Dalmatians get abducted with the others. So Cruella gets them from like 8 different homes.
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
at the end, they choose to adopt the rest of the Dalmatians, so it
That's
brings it up to
right.
101. So there's only like 15 births, and I'm like, oh, that's not like the worst thing.
Here's the second question to you then, Nathan. Do you think, if you're not a dog owner,
No, I'm not, sadly.
but if you did own a dog and it disappeared for a while and you're going, where's my dog gone? And then one day it just rocked up with 101 pups. Would you just take them all in?
No. And also, if you look at their apartment, which is in like central London, it's very small. Just the logistics of having 101 Dalmatians, I'm just like, I can't. Like,
This is a film we should talk about at a later
no,
date. I
it
feel
really
like
isn't.
maybe-
It's not worth the podcast. Like, it's nothing. Don't watch it.
I meant the original. I didn't mean the
Oh,
I didn't
right.
mean
Yeah, the
remake.
original's a good time. But like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember it being a good time. Is Glenn Close good in that movie, though?
She's
Can I ask?
amazing. And you know what?
Right.
The set design for her office and the costume design is outstanding. It's so good.
Yeah.
That holds up.
Yeah.
It really does. Like, her
Okay.
performance is great.
Well, we've just shat on one of Stephen's latter films.
So let's talk about Bill and Ted, Brenton. And you know what? I'm so happy, Brenton. I'm going to pitch you this movie. Can you pitch me the movie? Okay, Brenton, have you ever tripped on acid before?
No.
Well, Brenton, after seeing this movie, you pretty much well have, because here's the idea for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. All right, Bill and Ted, we're in the 80s, Brenton. Literally everything in this movie will give away that we're in the 80s. And Bill and Ted, they're high school students. They look as though they're in their early 20s, but that's okay. They're high school students. And they want to be rock stars, Brenton. So they're writing tunes in their garage, and then suddenly out of nowhere, this fucker called Rufus, played by George Carlin, one of the greatest comedians of all time. He rocks up and he's like, hey, you guys got to go through history and pass your history exam that's on tomorrow. Because if you don't, the time stream's going to be messed up and that's all. And so Bill and Ted, in order to pass their history exam, have to travel through time and interview various historical figures so they get that A and save the world.
Nathan, I have a couple questions. One is, why is it so integral to the future timeline that Bill and Ted pass this test?
Because in the future, Brenton, they end up writing a song that quote unquote saves the world and makes a utopia. So that's why it's important. Do we ever get any more answers than that? No, Brenton, we don't. It's not important. We just want two idiots to time travel.
Question number 2. Is there a good use of historical figures and their timelines used in this film? And if you knew nothing about these people, would you learn something?
Well, if I'm pitching you a movie and you want a time traveling adventure, there's going to be appearances from Napoleon, Socrates, Billy the Kid, others. They're all in there. So, you know, there's a historical figure for everyone, you know?
Okay. Oh, for everyone, right.
For everyone.
Interesting. Okay, well, you have me sold, so I'm going to give you plenty of funds to go find 2 young hooligans to play these 2 young hooligans.
Thank you. Keanu Reeves, Alex Wilder, we already got them hired. They're going to get the gig.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Nathan, have fun making it.
Thank you. It probably was a fun shoot. Like, if anything was going to be a fun shoot, it'd be this movie. You know what I mean?
You know what? I don't know if I'd have fun making this. Like, I think I'd have fun if I was playing one of the historical figures. I don't think I'd have fun if I was playing Bill and
Although,
Ted.
to be honest with you, I feel like none of the actors who are playing the historical figures are actually, like, they don't have much to play with. You know what I mean? Like, none of them gets a moment, per se. So, like, maybe Genghis Khan.
No.
Maybe he gets a little fun to do later on. But, like, you know.
Right.
We'll get into it.
Let's get into the next segment. And can you please tell me what you thought of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure?
Oh, my God, Brenton. What is this movie? What is this movie? Like, how did this get made?
I don't know how this got made, but this is one of those movies that I put it on and I was watching it for the show.
Yeah.
And it crossed my mind at a point that this is one of those movies that was made, and I know it was made. I kind of knew what the premise was going into it, and it does nothing with it. It is everything that you think it's going to be, and I didn't really need to watch it in the first place.
No. It's you know what? I mean, the premise is ridiculous, right? Like I remember, because obviously, like, you and I know nothing going into a movie, right? So it kind of dawned on me, like, wait a minute. Is this whole movie just about them trying to get an A in a history exam? I'm like, is that really what the stakes are? I'm like, we don't really find out what happens if they don't pass. You know what I mean? We're not introduced to what happens if they don't get that A. So when they're traveling through time to, like, learn about history, which is the most convoluted way to learn about history, I'm like, I don't care about any of this. I didn't feel like there was a single bit of stakes the entire movie, regardless of what situation they got in.
Well, the thing is, I think that comes back to, look, I think the actors are doing the best they can with what they've got.
Yeah.
But we don't actually give a shit about Bill and Ted to begin with.
No, or any of them, to be honest with you. Like, there's later on the movies, I kind of fell in love with a couple of the historical figures because I'm like, oh, bless. Like, you know what I mean? Because the premise of this movie is that they spend like 10 minutes in each time period just doing a little shenanigan, and then they take these historical figures and put them in the other time periods, and they do nothing with that. They'll grab like Napoleon, and then they'll put them in like the Wild Wild West, and like no one at any of these time periods bats an eye. Like, no one is like going like, wait a minute, like you're dressed from the future. And oh, by the way, Bill and Ted are the worst time travelers I think I've ever seen in a movie.
Agreed.
I remember when I first watched Back to the Future, and one of the reasons I dislike those movies is because bloody Marty McFly is a fucking idiot. Like, he is one of the worst time travelers ever put in cinema, because he is moronically like sharing how much he's from the future in each of those movies. But now he looks like a fucking saint compared to Bill and Ted. Because, like, they're just breaking all the rules, Brenton. This movie is broken. This is a broken film, Brenton.
Oh, Nathan, you pulled out the B word.
I did. Oh, boy. And I'm
dear.
not putting it back.
Look, I hear you. I hear everything you're saying.
Were you getting frustrated at this?
I don't know if I necessarily agree about the Back to the Future comment, but I can understand where you're coming from. I think where I'm coming from is that I don't think I'm necessarily as insulted. I'm not as insulted by this film as you are. You know what I mean? Like,
No.
I feel like I don't have a seething desire to like express like how much this movie the issues with the film, because they're undoubtedly there, and I just didn't even care enough to begin with to invest in this discussion. You know what I mean? Like, I know I'm reviewing the movie, and I can say what I think about the film, but at the end of the day, I guess this is a huge criticism. After this episode, I don't know if I'm ever going to think about this again. Like,
No.
if someone brings up Bill and Ted with a great fondness, I'll go, one, I don't know where that's really coming from or why that exists, but, you do you.
Yeah.
Why is this movie famous?
I think,
like, why?
okay, let's put our heads into the mind space of someone from the 80s, right? So, imagine we got a huge Coke addiction, for some reason we think Lycra's a good idea, We're still probably racist against Russians, who knows? So, like, we're in that headspace and we're watching this movie, and genuinely, like, I think, like, it's guilty of a lot of 80 movies, e.g. Breakfast Club. I think a lot of it is also this film was a love letter to 80s rock music. You know what I mean?
Was it?
Well, like, it's about them wanting to be a rock band.
Where did you get that from? Where is the love letter to rock music? All I got.
Well, they keep on air guitar in every, like, third minute. And, like,
oh, mate, that's not a love letter. Maybe they were trying to, like, look, this was made in the late 80s. Maybe
this is a Harry Potter howler.
I agree. Maybe it was a howler directly pointed at 80s rock music, because, oh my God.
How dare you steal that phone booth? The record companies and I are absolutely disgusted.
I'm a secret advocate for 80s rock. You know what I mean? I like to put on the old...
I mean, you rocked up with the Van Halen show today, Brenton.
You know what I mean? Like, I like that kind of shit. And, like, what? I can
So
get
you would
amongst
have
it.
loved this movie soundtrack because it's outstanding, right?
Again, look, it kind of went over my head.
Oh, because you're used to hearing this every day. You're like, oh, yeah.
It wasn't even that. Like, I just feel like there was no scene in this film that warranted the use of, like, the music. You know what I mean? Like, there was nothing...
It's weird as well, because they'll go to different time periods, but they'll keep on shoehorning all this 80s rock music in the middle of it. It just doesn't mesh. What's that Sofia Coppola film? Didn't Sofia Coppola make a movie, like, set in, like, the Victorian times or something like that had, like, all this, like, modern, like, rock pop music or something?
I'm not sure.
She did something like that, what this movie does, and she got blasted for it as well. Bloody Sofia Coppola. So, like, I feel like this is doing the same thing.
Look, the biggest thing going for this movie is that it doesn't take itself serious, and it's very self-aware, but it's hard to invest into what this film wants you to invest in when it's not taking itself seriously to a certain extent in regards to, say, the stakes, as you said before. So for me, like, it doesn't invest enough in the early game to have the payoff towards the end. You know what I mean? And the other thing is that's really probably the biggest criticism of this film, apart from obviously those major story issues, is that the jokes aren't funny. It's the same joke over and over again.
And, like, to be honest with you, I kind of got... I love the woes. This is where Keanu Reeves got his famous woe from. But, like, it does get old, and them talking in time did get on my nerves eventually. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Look, it's like you compare it to, say, like, because it's the same joke principally as... Have you seen, like, the SNL skit, like, the Californians, when they're all, like, pretending they're from the valley and they're all in the mansion and they're all, like... It's like the plot's, like... doesn't make sense, and they're all just being dickheads and doing these funny accents and faces. Like, I find that funny to watch, but again, that's a 2-minute sketch.
Yeah, you don't need to do a whole movie of this. It's just...
And it's funny to watch people break and see how far they can take that accent and how ridiculous
this
they
movie
can get
feels
with it.
like an SNL movie. Like, they took a sketch and just stretched it out for a whole film.
Kind of, yeah. But again, like, if you stretch it out for the whole movie and it's the same joke, like, it's the same sketch it's the same 2-minute sketch for an hour and a half, which is how long this film feels. It feels like 3 hours.
It feels so fucking long. It crawls, like... I like the subplots probably more than the actual main plot, to be honest with you, because there's probably the best premise for a B storyline I've ever seen in a movie. Which, you know what, I'm actually gonna... You know what, I think I can spoil what the B storyline is. I think that's okay.
We can spoil what it involves, sure. You can set it up.
So the main storyline is Bill and Ted going about on their historical adventures, but the B storyline, which I argue is a much better movie, and a movie I probably would have preferred to see, is they leave Napoleon the French emperor to be babysat by Keanu Reeves' little brother? Or is it Alex Wilder's little brother? One of them.
No, it's Keanu's.
Yeah, it's Keanu's little brother. So his little brother has to take Napoleon out for like a whole day trip. And just like to see Napoleon like go to the mall, like all this, like, it's amazing. And the storyline with that escalates and it's incredible. Like that's the movie I wanted to see.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree that there's, again, look, this film has all the setup to have some good, funny moments.
Yeah, you could do stuff with this premise.
Yeah, totally. Like going around with historical figures, going to different time periods with two dickheads, basically, could be a fun idea. But it just does nothing with it. Like, I think the Napoleon stuff, like you said, is probably the most charming, let's say, like parts of the film are like those moments when, like, you know, there's bowling alleys, you know, there's.
Did you think of Double Indemnity when you saw Napoleon there?
Yeah, I had a sneaky flashback for a second there. But again, like, there's just not enough invested into the actual like character relationships, and I don't want something deep.
No one goes on really arcs. They don't have major arcs in this movie. You know what? As well, this film is so derivative.
Yeah.
You see this premise done a billion times better. You know what's so funny? So I was reading up on this. So originally, the phone booth that they time travel in was meant to be a van. But the filmmakers thought it was too similar to the DeLorean from Back to the Future. They thought, oh no, this is too derivative. So you know what's not derivative? A time traveling phone booth. That hasn't been done before, Brenton.
My mind didn't even go to the DeLorean when you said the van. You know what I mean? Like, that makes more sense for Bill and Ted. From just the design perspective of like who they are, what they're about, like that makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, the DeLorean is like a whole separate entity, I feel like, to that you could get away with it. I guess maybe because it was the same era, like, and, you know, it's American, it's not British, as say like Doctor Who, that they thought they could get away with it. But again, the whole time I thought instantly, as soon as that phone booth appeared, I was like, really?
You're just copying Doctor Who. And also, it's the stupidest thing considering like how many people they bring into the phone booth. The amount of people they cram into that fucking phone booth. I'm like, that's probably the most egregious thing this movie does. Like, no one should fit in it.
That could have been a funny joke. That could have been hilarious. And like, it's like that classic joke of like the thing, like the bag or whatever it is, the object that looks like it can only fit a certain amount, but like things keep coming out of it. Like, that's a funny gag. Like, if you play it right. So like, it's another missed opportunity to do something fun with that. Instead, they're just kind of crammed in there.
I do like that the phone booth also actually works as a phone booth. I do like that element of it. Like they do use it to make a phone call at one point. Like that's great. But in general with that, they just do nothing with it. And you know what pisses me off the most as well? Like this feels like an 80s edutainment video. This feels like we've sat down in class, or like in high school with our little zits in the 80s, watching this like shit thing on like it's like, hey dude, I'm Keanu. Hey, and I'm Alex, and this is history. It's like Socrates was a pretty cool guy. It's like, you know what I mean? Like you're not really you know what? It treats the audience as idiotic as Keanu is. It presumes we kind of know nothing about these famous people besides their names. You don't really get anything out of it.
It should be taking the opposite tact. Like maybe like there should be some in-jokes that we understand that the characters maybe don't about these people because we understand where they're from. But at the same time, maybe it goes a bit deeper into each of their characters and how that changes in regards to how they react to Bill and Ted, how they react to each other. You know what I mean? Like Genghis Khan reacting with Napoleon, or like
that's the biggest thing. I hated this movie so much because it didn't have the famous people actually doing something that pertained to them. Like not once do they ever actually need Socrates to have a little moment and be philosophical, or they never really get Genghis Khan to be that brutal, or they never get like Abraham Lincoln to like broker some peace. Like the famous people don't actually do the things that they're famous for.
You know what does this idea a lot better? And it's not exactly the same idea, but it's still getting a bunch of historical figures to interact with each other.
Is it Night at the Museum, Brenton?
Yeah, dude, absolutely.
This is a shitty Night at the Museum. It's like, it's not Genghis Khan, but who's that like aggressive caveman guy that like, you know, that's also with them? You know, in the Museum, there's like a really aggressive guy with like a mallet. I forget it, but like even like Sacagawea, like in Night of the Museum, Sacagawea is like, you know, doing the exploring. You know, Teddy Roosevelt, you know, is trying to keep everyone calm and that kind of stuff. Like everyone, like even the Easter Island head, like does something like that pertains to what he is.
Exactly. Yeah, and so it's fun. Like it's like as a family film, you know, that's from a certain time. It's a idea, and it makes on the promise of like bringing a bunch of historical figures from different timelines together and interacting in the modern world. Like it's a fun idea.
Much better. They even go to like dinosaur periods. They even go to dinosaur periods and they never even actually bring up the dinosaurs. Like you can so see this movie's budget. Like you can so see where the money's at.
I just did a Google of who
was it?
It's Attila the Hun.
Oh, Attila, thank you. Yeah. It's like even he in those movies does a lot more, you know?
Yeah.
I just don't understand. Like you could change out any of these historical figures for anyone else and it'd have zero impact on the movie.
Yeah.
Also the sheer volume of historical figures they don't need.
Like, to be honest, there's not even that many.
No.
To a certain point.
Also, what history presentation requires these specific like 8 time periods? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a random combination. Like, I felt they got like a dartboard and was just like randomly listing like random famous people and they're like, oh yeah, let's just throw them in.
It is bizarre, isn't it? The more you think about it, you're just like, why? What history class is this, really?
And they also, when they time travel, they don't spend enough time in that period for it to mean anything. Like, by the time they actually try to start to develop a storyline, they just leave and they just get someone else. I just don't get it. You know what, as well? The directing in this cinematography is shit.
Oh, yeah.
Just throwing it out there.
The film as a film kind of sucks. Like, we're just kind of like going between moments and not really investing in anything. Like, from a cinematic perspective, you're just kind of watching things happen in these wide shots. There's moments that could be a moment, or we could do something interesting with it, but we just like that's the biggest. That's like the quote of the like. And to sum up this movie is that like has promise but never lives up to it or does anything with it. So you just feel like you're just watching stuff happen.
Like Doctor Who does this better, Legends of Tomorrow does this better, Cursed Child does this better. And that's saying something.
You're bringing out the big boys.
I know, and I hate Cursed Child, but even Cursed Child does better with its time travel in this movie. Like, because at least the people do something. Like, I was so hyped for this project. I actually felt hype. Like, I was excited because I love Keanu, and it's a funny premise.
I don't know. If I'm being positive, I guess the 2 lead performances, you can see why Keanu went on to like, you can see that there's talent there. You can see that, these guys have the ability to hold their own with some screen presence and do something. But like, 1, they're not given much to do with. And 2, they're just not great templates for characters because they're not characters. They're just kind of these 2-dimensional things that say lines and do the same shit over and over again and never develop or do anything. So like, why should we be expected to do the same?
I don't know, Brent. I've generally like no good answer for that.
Why is this movie so beloved?
I don't know, man. There's a lot of beloved films from the 80s that I just don't understand why it is. Like, and that's kind of why we have this podcast. Because like in 2020, Jesus, like what would you get out of Bill and Ted? Should we rate it?
Yeah, we should rate it because that's kind of the question of this episode.
You're fond of me lobster, ain't you?
So yeah, I'm putting my thumbs down because like for me, there's just nothing in this that gets me excited or, that I can even see in as to why it would get some of you, our listeners, excited. I just find it a bit derivative.
Narratively, there's not that much going on and it's like, and you know what? I think maybe in the sequels, especially in Bill and Ted 3, maybe you could get something out of it. But like, I just can't see anyone loving this that hasn't seen it and is going to watch it today. Like, you might love the soundtrack, like even if you love the rock music, sure, but like, it just doesn't do anything with it.
Couldn't agree more, Nathan. Should we get into some spoilers, though?
You spoiled it.
What?
The movie.
Oh. So, the scene I want to start with, one of the subplots that never goes anywhere from the start is when we go to Bill's house for the first time.
Oh my goodness.
And they're trying to do their study.
Oh my goodness.
For their project.
I cringed.
There's this bizarre scene where, because we meet Bill's stepmom, who looks probably around their age.
What's it, Millie? Molly? Whatever her name is? Like,
I can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't.
She's quite young, and she rocks up.
She was a senior when they were juniors or whatever, or freshmen. Like, she's only maybe 3 or 4 years older.
Yeah, she picks them up from school, drops them home, and then Bill's dad rocks up in their room, just like checking their studying, whatever. She brings in like, this was like the one thing I kind of smirked at that I thought was a bit funny, was that she was such a shit cook that she made these like horrid looking sandwiches or whatever they were. Like, that was funny. I was like,
yeah.
And she just kind of gives them to everyone, and like no one eats them. Like, they just kind of hold them for the
Yeah,
scene.
they're just all like, oh, okay, sure.
I was like, that's funny. And anyway, and then he sends them out of Bill's room so they can get it on.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just the weirdest moment. It never goes anywhere.
The dad's like, the dad like is like sends him out of the kid's bedroom because he's gonna fuck her. Like
Yeah.
The film's very like blatantly forward with that. Bill kind of shrugs his shoulders and kind of accepts it. He's like, oh, okay. Like, every fucking time they say like, dude, that's your stepmom. It's like, you feel like you're watching like a shitty porno. It's like, stop it. Like, I don't need this MILF shit in here. Like, get out.
I hear you, man. It's a classic case of like, there's blatantly the joke. Laugh at it, please. And
It's just shitty writing.
it's not funny enough on its own terms. Like I said, I thought the sandwiches were funnier
Yeah.
than the premise that should have been funny.
This film fails the Bechdel text, and it's so creepy as well. All the women in this film are poorly represented. It's just insulting. Like, it's Joan of Arc, one of the most iconic feminist figures of history. Like, what are you doing with her? Having a bloody teach an exercise class? Like,
I honestly forgot about that. Yeah, look, you can say it about any of these historical figures that are just so... They're not even, like...
they don't even look like the historical figures. Like,
no, they're not even the people. Like Socrates was the biggest, joke, and not in a good way, during this film. Like, what did he offer?
it's weird that they're historically accurate in the fact that they don't speak English. Like, they keep that side of it where they wouldn't be able to communicate. But for some reason, everything else is historically inaccurate. It's like, if you're just going to throw away accuracy, at least have them bloody communicate, you know?
Yeah, it's weird the times that we spend when the film chooses to spend a lot of time in a different period. Like, we spend so much time in the Old West and introducing Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
For what?
He does nothing. I love it. Speaking of Billy the Kid, my favorite moment with him is when they rock up to the medieval time period and Bill and Ted go off on their adventure and they're trying to plan what to do with the castle. And in the background, you can see Socrates and Billy the Kid kind of tossing a football.
Yeah.
They're just having a good time. Like, oh yeah.
But there's something there. There's something, again, there's something there that could happen between Billy the Kid and Socrates.
You don't have Lincoln meet an outlaw from the Old West, kind of similar periods that they're both from.
Yeah.
And they don't bond over that. In Captain America: Civil War, when Captain America first meets Spider-Man, they bond that they're both from New York, and it's a nice little moment. You don't get anything close to that with these characters.
Again, this brings up the issue of what history class are they having when they're learning about Socrates and Abraham Lincoln at the same time? It's so bizarre.
I know! It's what are you doing? It's but then again, when you listen to the other speeches from the other kids as well, they're just as awkwardly convoluted.
It's so
one
true.
of the jocks, for some reason, he sounds like he's running for class president or something like that. He kind of stops talking about history at one point and just goes on.
I get that it's worthwhile to have Abraham Lincoln and Socrates in the same film.
Oh.
But if you're not going to do something fun and,
No.
wild, that could only happen when those two people are put in the same room, then what was the point?
I know. You have Genghis Khan, the biggest warmonger, with Abe Lincoln, who tried to broker peace. You could have them have an interaction, you know what I mean?
Oh, man. Yeah. There's so much promise, again, to do something cool
Genghis
with it.
Khan was so misogynistic, and yet you have Joan of Arc, who's this feminist figure.
Yeah. Instead, we just focus on these two idiots that offer nothing but the same gag.
It's just oh, wow, they actually like this. It's I don't understand it. You know what as well? I hate them because they're so idiotic. So they when they go to the medieval time and they leave to go rescue the princess or whatever it is, they leave Socrates and Billy the Wilder alone with the time machine.
Yeah.
And I'm Brenton, would you leave any historical figure alone with the time machine to take care of it?
Probably not. I'd probably keep the group together. You know what I mean?
And the fact as well, it's kind of a funny gag. I did laugh. Every time they go to the time period, they keep on saying, "Let's bag them." They keep on they just blatantly kidnap these historical figures who, by the way, don't put up much of a fight. You know what I mean?
They're kind of okay with it. You know what I mean? When they go to other time periods, they're like, "Oh yeah, whatevs."
You think Socrates in general? What's going through their minds as these historical figures are being kidnapped? Do you know what I mean?
Look, I don't think anyone thought that far ahead. The writers didn't think that far ahead. The characters aren't thinking that far ahead. No one's really thinking. They just kind of do things.
There's a moment in this movie where they pause for snacks, where they have a little snack break in a million BC, and it's kind of a little downtime for everyone to catch their breath. And not once is anyone putting up their hand and going, "What the fuck is going on?" You know what I mean? They're all still kind of just going with it, and they're not even told that they've been kidnapped to help pass a history exam. They're not even informed as to what this premise is. They kind of just they're all silent. They all don't have any lines, and they're just pulling some weird ass goofy face. What are you doing? Do you want to just talk about the historical figures?
Sure, let's go through these.
Let's go through them. Let's call this thing which historical figure is most egregiously represented, because let's save Napoleon for last, because there's a lot I want to talk about with Napoleon. Let's reserve.
Well, Napoleon probably does the most. If I'm saying which one is the most egregiously represented, my vote would have to go. I would go for Socrates.
Yeah, probably Socrates. Because he's a philosopher. You think he would be flabbergasted at the time. Oh, he's also from the oldest as well, by the way. So you think he would be the most impressed with modern technology?
It's not even that. It's we never he's not a character. Like, we just don't learn anything about him.
No.
We don't really know what he's about. Like, if you didn't know who Socrates was and you watched this movie, you would kind of be very confused as to why this person in robes was getting screen time.
Yeah, like you don't know, and it's just like, and he's just kind of sitting there, just twiddling his thumbs. There's one point where he tries to pick up some women at a mall. Like with like Billy the Kid.
That's right.
And you're like, what is going on? And like these women are kind of like impressed with like these Jersey girls, like, oh, look at that man. Oh, he's got a robe on. Like they're all like very impressed with it, but he's doing nothing. And then Socrates' main lesson is that Billy the Kid is like the one that picks him up, and he's like, oh, maybe I should be a cowboy. It's just, what are you doing with him?
Who do you think's the most egregiously represented? Who would you vote for?
I debated with this a lot. I actually got a lot triggered by Freud because I'm like, but they kind of have him do some Freud things because I'm like, okay, I'll forgive that. But like the one I got the most angry, I thought Beethoven was the best actually.
In what sense?
Because they just pick him up from a piano and he's still bloody playing the keys as they pick him up, and I love that. But like he does what Beethoven would do, which is he'd go straight to a music store to see what happened to music. And I'm like, that's probably what Beethoven would do. Like, you know, he'd want to see the innovation in music.
Sure, yeah.
So him I like the most. And like he makes some good tunes later on in the movie, as we find out. But like, I think probably Abe Lincoln.
Yeah.
1, he speaks English and he barely fucking speaks. 2, when he actually does do the speech, and like everyone's like jerking off to the best president ever because like, oh, America. Like he ends up doing like this kind of mediocre script because it was written by mediocre screenwriters. So like, you know, so like he had his one moment and he fucked that up as well. And 3, there's a scene where Abe Lincoln tries to get like an old photo taken, and then he kind of beats up the shopkeeper and runs away.
That's, oh man.
Like Abe Lincoln would never do that.
Totally. That's a good vote. Dude, there's so many scenes in this movie that you just like talk about, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, like, oh man,
it's just,
yeah, that's a good vote, man.
Yeah, so Abe Lincoln, but I think we should now spend some time with Napoleon, Brenton.
Napoleon does everything in this movie, dude. He has a wild evening.
So originally in this movie, they were going to make that Hitler. I know. But then the screenwriters took it to the producers and they're like, look, I don't think it's like having Hitler, I think is a bit much. So they're like, let's take another dictator from history.
I'm just trying to think, like, again, that's a fun premise, like the Hitler idea.
Like, well, they've done it of Look Who's Back, that 2017 film. Yeah, which is amazing, by the way. Everyone should watch that movie. It's so genius. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't, but I know what you're talking about. But again, I'm
It's
just
great.
thinking, like, at the time, like, if they had done that and done something with it, it could have been really cool.
Maybe. I don't think the screenwriters were that developed enough to do something interesting with Hitler.
Exactly. I'm glad that they didn't do it because I don't think it would have gone well.
No, I think it would have really blown this film up in the wrong way. But yeah, but they bring Napoleon, and like for some reason okay, so if a Napoleon was kidnapped, in the same way if Genghis Khan was kidnapped, like, and they were brought to this modern time period, first they'd kill Bill and Ted. Like they wouldn't even hesitate to kill Bill and Ted. Like Napoleon's got a sword the whole movie. Like he would immediately kill them and take the time machine and try and work out what the fuck's going on. So like, also
For sure.
Napoleon knew English, by the way. So like, I don't know why they don't have him speak.
Or take them hostage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
So like that's going on for starters, and then Jesus, when they rock up in the battle just to kidnap him in the first place, it's like, I can't. But so the kid has Napoleon, and for some reason the first thing they do is take him to like an ice cream kid's like birthday party thing. Now, Brenton, regardless of how Napoleon acts in this movie, say you and I went to get some ice cream, how would you react, Brenton, if you ate a big tub of ice cream and then the staff treated you like you were an actual pig and gave you a little pig badge for eating ice cream?
insulted is the word that comes to mind.
Jesus, what are they doing? They have a guy who they presume is some actor in a Napoleon costume, which because it is, and they're like, oh, you ate a tub of ice cream, here you go. And Napoleon's just kind of like, ooh, le glace, and he's like, haha, ice cream.
It's so, look, what an establishment this ice cream parlor is, you know what I mean?
God.
Like, what?
It's like, yeah, I can't deal with that ice cream venue. And he gets booted out, and then if he got thrown out, he would just kill everyone.
Would he though? Like, again, like, we're not really going into the psyche of what happens when you're taken out of your time period and thrown into the future.
He's just so petty in this movie.
I know, he's such a dingbat.
Like when he really, that's a good word for it, dingbat.
Yeah.
Like when he loses at bowling and he tries to cheat and the kids are kind of rolling their eyes.
I know, it's bizarre. Like, he's so petty, you know what I mean? Like, he's such a petty child in this film, and you're just like, is this Napoleon?
It's not. I like to think maybe they just got the wrong Napoleon. Maybe just like he had like a Padme thing, he had like a body double, and they just like grabbed the wrong one, and he's just kind of like going with it. Like, oh yeah, maybe I'm Napoleon.
So he goes bowling, he cheats at bowling, and then
But then the best scene happens.
Oh, like this is just bizarre.
This is the
Like,
best thing
why
the movie
does.
does.
This happen?
Because because for some reason Bill and Ted are like, oh, if we were Napoleon, where would we go? And for some reason their first thought is a fucking water park. Like, why? Why in God's name would Napoleon fucking Bonaparte go to a children's water park in the 80s? I just don't understand. And furthermore, why would they think that would be his first place to go?
What's funny is that they're correct. Like he's just there
just
living it up.
He's just fucking about. And you know what? I was praying. I prayed that in this scene he would go down the water slide in full uniform. I really wanted that to happen.
It was just kind of there for the taking. The moment was there.
But he's
to
just there in
happen.
a little like cap and like his little like, you know, bathers. And it's great because he's kind of pushed in front of the line as well. He's just like shoving kids out of the way and he's just going down the water slide. And by the way, that water park looks great. Like that makes me keen to go to a water park after seeing that because he's having a good time.
I mean, sure, it does look like a good time, but again, I'm still trying to work out why Napoleon Bonaparte knows what a water park is.
It's so stupid.
And why he thought to go there.
And I love it as well when you watch Napoleon try and get into the water park as well because there's like a woman with like 11 children. It's like cheaper by the dozen. And she's trying to get them all in. And then just in the middle of it, in comes Napoleon Bonaparte, like just like hurtling through the gate. Like
He just rocks up.
what happens when they put him back? That's another thing we don't see. We don't see them put we don't see him put any of the historical figures be put back in their time period.
Again, there's such a moment for the taking there to have them go back to history class and in history class because the past has changed at that point.
Yeah.
To have them be like, oh, Napoleon is known throughout history as creating the first like water park.
But they don't do it. That's the thing. Like, the past doesn't change. We'll talk about time travel soon, but like, they don't have any consequences for this. So by the time Napoleon like does this little thing, should we talk about this final presentation? Because like, there's a lot going on there. Because what does Napoleon even do in it? Like, I think he has his battle plans. That's right. He has his like little, because he makes it look like a water slide when he's like invading Europe. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is happening here? Can we talk about this presentation? Because, like, okay, one, do you reckon they had a tech rehearsal? Because there's a lot going on in there. Like, the lights and, like, the smoke. Like, or was this improv? Like, where did they have the time to plan this presentation?
They didn't. I think it's meant to be like they just improv it on the spot. But boy, like, what a If so, okay, just think you're in, let's say, ancient history in high school, right?
And by the way, for some reason, this warrants a whole school assembly. You're doing a history presentation.
We've rocked up to assembly. We're sitting there ready to go with our presentations. We think they're pretty good. I'm doing mine on Ramses II, and I don't know, who are you doing yours on?
I don't know, but like, I'll do Napoleon. I'll do a better one.
We're sitting there. We got our Microsoft PowerPoints ready to go. And then this happens. The guys before us get up and do this.
It's ridiculous. And it's funny because like the stepmom rocks up as well. And like, the
that's
best
right.
line of the movie. The best line of the movie is when they're like interviewing Sigmund Freud. And then he like tries to get Billy on the couch. But then Bill's like, oh, I've got an eatable complex. I'm like, that's like the smartest line of the movie. I'm like, well done.
Yeah.
And it kind of cuts to the mum and she's like, oh, okay.
But again, more content like that of like, we're in on the joke because we understand like, what it's referencing would have been great.
Yeah.
Like this, oh man.
But that final presentation is like, what did you think of it, Brenton?
Well, okay, put it this way. If I was grading that... If I was the teacher and I was looking at my curriculum sheet and I was going, are they living like, because they're not doing any of the curriculum. Like, really?
No.
When you think, like, well, actually, we don't know. We don't know
I
what
blame
the
the teacher
curriculum
for
is.
this, Brenton. I blame the teacher for them failing, personally.
I personally do too. You know what? I'd probably give it an A+ for effort.
Yeah, probably. It's funny because we see the teacher write Fs even before the presentation has started. But then and he writes an F in a way that you can so see him easily putting a final stroke for an A. But like, we never see that moment. Like, I don't even think we know what we got. I don't know. I don't think that we actually find the final grade.
I think they pass. I think they get the A+. Surely.
Yeah.
Surely.
Obviously.
That's what happens.
They must. But also, should they? Like, are they actually saying anything that significant when they do it?
No.
Like, no. Like, if you actually listen to their presentation, they're saying anything like an open they're saying anything that the first paragraph of Wikipedia could tell you. You know what I mean? It's like,
Exactly.
that by having the actual historical figure there, could you imagine the actual historiography that you could do with that? It's like, oh, Lincoln could actually talk to us about what was going on with the Confederacy. Like Socrates. There's so much we don't know about ancient Greece. So let's chat about it.
Yeah, exactly.
But they do some like weird miming routine instead. Like
Exactly. It comes back to what you said with the teacher before. It comes back to the fact of like, if you actually wanted an interesting presentation, you wouldn't be like, oh, please use every single one of the historical figures from all different time zones, that we've spoken about, and try and relate them to each other. Maybe that's an interesting idea, and maybe there'd be some threads to keep you through, these wildly different people who have wildly different personalities and traits and views and whatnot, and try and link something together about them all, or point out the differences between them. But it's just kind of like the assignment expects you to just say, I know who Socrates is or was, and I know basically, where he was, that what he did, and that's about it. And now moving on to Abe Lincoln, who I also know did this and that.
Oh.
He died on this date from this, and it's just bizarre.
it is.
At the same time, like it's kind of an interest, like not interesting. It's this big moment at the end of the film. It's like this big thing that kind of is meant to incorporate everything that we've done so far, all the people we've met so far, and incorporate everything. And again, it just could have been so much better. It could have been so funny.
It could have been so much better. And you know what's funny as well? Like they end it with them just blatantly using the time machine in front of everyone. Why? Why would that be the way that you end it? You know what I mean? Like you're not even doing thing afterwards. Like they presume it's like a magic show. It's like, are they getting an A for the magic?
I definitely think so. That's what I mean. It's
I'd give them an A for that if I was a teacher.
A plus for effort, A plus for the presentation side of things, but the content, man.
Oh my goodness.
The thing that's really cool too that could have happened, and I was thinking this when watching it, like there's something cool in the fact of like what we presume is history and to what is actually the true history, you know what I mean? Because we don't know the true history because we weren't there. So there's something fun that could have happened of been like, oh, well, the history book says this, and it's like, and they get it wrong because they're going off what actually happened. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, it's hilarious, for example, with Napoleon with the water slide map. Like, that's really funny.
Yeah.
It's like, it's because Napoleon thought of a strategy like he would a waterfall or a water slide, and the teacher's like, where the fuck are you getting that information from? And then it's like,
Exactly.
Oh, never mind. Like, that's funny. Like, that's a cool idea.
Were you startled, Brenton, at the number of high school kids that carry lighters with them? Because Jesus, when they all applaud, they all hold up their lighters, and like every single one of them has got the biggest lighter known to man.
And why is this okay? Like, why?
Yeah!
Why?
There's like
why?
100 of them just being held up at once. I'm like, Jesus, you could start a fire here with all that.
Could you imagine we went to the same high school.
I mean, we did, but go on.
But we go to assembly, the full school assembly, all the junior school kids are there, we're all there in like the sports hall, and everyone just whips out a lighter at some stage and just starts, like, could you imagine what would happen? Like,
could you imagine our headmaster at the podium and just seeing 1,000 lighters being held up, and he's just like visibly startled by it. He's just like, what do I do here?
And then imagine just like the newsletter that goes home like the next week of like,
oh my
we
goodness,
realized the major safety failure we had last week when we put our students through this and whatnot, and this happened. We have reprimanded those who were involved and whatnot, but like we are very sorry that any crisis may have happened. We take the safety of our students with utmost importance and whatnot. But in this, it's just like, let's just all whip out live flames and hang out. You know what I mean? Like,
it's just like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Like, you just shake your head. Like, what are you doing
Why?
here? You know what pisses me off as well? Why do Bill and Ted fall in love with Rufus? Like, he's in the movie for like
I know.
3 scenes. He's barely in it. But like every time they see him, they're like, whoa, Rufus, this guy, he's the guy.
Going into it, I thought he was going to be a much bigger character than what he was, because he's like the third build character in it. You're like, oh, well, he's going to be coming in, maybe be the voice of reason or something during it, or like give us more information about the future and provide some funny laughs about the future timeline or whatnot. Like, that'd be cool. But instead he just kind of...
He's like, here's the yellow pages, fuck off. Have fun.
Yeah.
It's never explained as well. Like, you think he'd explain some context of the movie, but he just doesn't. Like, he rocks up, gives him the phone booth, and they have a little double scene, which is kind of nice. You get the best line of the movie. Bill, strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Yeah. See, I like that. Like, again, like, more of that is fun. Like, more of the commenting on actually what's going on and that the film is self-aware could have been fun. But we had to care about what was these characters and what was going on to begin with to make it interesting. But yeah, I agree. That's a funny line. Like, the lines like that are funny.
It's great. But then Rufus goes, and then we don't see him until the very end of the movie. You see Rufus rock up at the end of the movie, and he's brought the 2 princesses, like, to like close a kind of thing that I mentioned before. Or like they want to go to the prom with the princesses. And like, it's so funny because like Bill and Ted ask them like, oh, princesses, where did you get these dresses? And they're like, oh, Rufus introduced us to something called the mall and a credit card. And I was sitting in my couch with my bloody PJs on and my cup of coca. And I'm like, hold up. First off, what bank in the 80s would give these princesses credit cards? Like, how the fuck did they get approved for a credit card?
I just presume that Rufus did some future magic and just got them for him.
Maybe. Probably, actually. Because I'm like, there's no way they would have background checked those princesses.
Let alone, like, again, like, it comes back to the fact of, like, all the historical figures or anyone from the past just acts so normal in the modern world.
Yeah.
It just goes, oh yeah, credit card, sure.
Captain America, when he goes into the future, like, repeatedly, like, goes, wait, what's going on? Who's that? He makes a little list. He's like, I gotta catch up on shit. Like, he's like actively trying to keep up. These characters couldn't give two shits.
I love that you keep using MCU references to like justify how to do this properly. Like, I love it. It's so funny.
But you know what's even funny? Even like the MCU holds back on like being like, whoa, we're out of time. Like even when like Brie Larson rocks up from the 90s, she's not like, whoa, what's an iPhone? You know what I mean? Like they rock up, do their business and get out. But they still acknowledge the fact they've been displaced, you know? Like
Totally. Otherwise it wouldn't mean anything. And that is how you sum up this movie. It doesn't mean anything.
It means literally nothing.
Why do you think George Carlin signed on to play Rufus? Like,
that's a good I mean, do you know the answer? Did you do research?
No,
like,
I have no idea. But again, like the deeper question that we still haven't answered is, and that I think our listeners need to answer for us, is why is this film so beloved? Why do people love this? Why did this get a sequel and people are losing their shit over the fact that it's getting another sequel? Why is this happening? What is it about this that sets it aside from anything, really?
Don't know.
I just don't get it. I feel like there's a joke happening and I'm just not in on it. You know what I mean?
No. And like, that's exactly it. Like, I feel like people remember only the like maybe 3 good moments of this movie and then that's it. And they just cling on to it. So
I did kind of like the scene where they see the past versions of themselves, Bill and Ted, like the future versions of themselves. Like that's a fun moment when they both see each other. But again, there's like, there could be more done there. But like, I appreciate the moment of like, hey man, make sure you do this. All right, guys, we're at
remember to set the watch. It's like, oh, shut up, Keanu. I don't want this. Brenton, like, we find out later in this movie that the main reason they've gotten these historical figures is not to pass the historical test, but to actually just do some chores. That's the only reason them as a group actually do anything together. It's to do the housework. So, like, in saying that, Brenton, if you had a time machine and you could go back to get a group of historical figures to do some chores for you, who would you get?
Here's the thing. I don't know if historical figures would be the people you'd get to do
You could just hire just, like, some local, like, you know, people to help. Like,
to be honest, like, if you were to go back in time, like, and you went into some, I don't know, let's say you go back and you go, let's go to medieval England, let's say, and you go into a village.
You bring back Kevin Costner from Robin Hood. You're like, clean this up.
You go into a village and you say, hi, everyone. I will give you a week's worth of bread and cheese. If you come with me and do some simple cleaning. Like, fuck, man, the villagers would just flock to you. They'd be like, hell to the yes.
Fuck yeah, this guy's got bread. You know, I'll go the opposite direction. I mean, I'll go the future and just like get a robot to do it, frankly.
Mate, just go to Rocky.
Oh my god, I'll take the robot from Rocky 4. Jeez.
Get the robot.
If I had to, like, you know, I don't know. I'd probably, if I had to get some like themed, like, you know, house cleaners, maybe I'd go to like Japan or something like that because they're pretty clean. So maybe get the Japanese to do a job or like, I don't know. Again, you don't need to go back in time for this kind of shit. Even if you like, say you were Bill and Ted and you had to like go to history, where would you go, Brenton? Just in general.
Again, like, it's hard to know because like the thing I always take into consideration is that there's places that I would go to in an instant, right?
Yeah.
But you have to understand that when you go to somewhere that like they're not going to acclimatize to you.
Yeah, you got to fit in.
They're going to see an outsider and fucking probably, I don't know what they're going to
attack,
do.
probably. Like,
so if I went to ancient Egypt, which I would love to go to and just like check out and see what it was like, there's a greater chance that I'm not coming back from that trip. You know what I mean?
God, like, no, you are long dead, Brenton. But like, say you were protected. I don't know, like if
like Egypt's mine. Like I'd love to go back and see Egypt and like see what.
I'd love to see the 7 ancient wonders. Like I'd love to see what like what Mesopotamia actually was like, or like Babylon, or like the because I feel like they've been overhyped. I feel like if you actually saw the hanging gardens of Babylon, I feel like it maybe just be like a small garden. You know what I mean? Like
maybe not though.
Like back then, it would have been impressive.
Potentially not though. Potentially you'd go back and you'd be like, "Holy fuck, this is like on a whole nother level." And like I don't know what happen.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Because there's
Or
so
even-
much we don't know.
No. Would you see the dinosaurs if I could want to see a dinosaur? Or a mammoth? That'd be kind of cool.
I'd want to see a dinosaur. I'd want to see a saber-toothed tiger, but the danger associated with that.
They would kill you instantly. I
don't even know if they would necessarily kill you instantly. I don't know if the climate is right back then for you to be fucking wandering around. I don't know if it's healthy to be wandering. I don't know
what the temperature is like. How's the oxygen levels on Earth right now? Who knows?
Especially back then, or you just step on some grass and it fucking poisons you and causes you to have a skin condition. You fucking writhe on the ground in agony and die. I don't know.
There's so much going on here that they just don't take into consideration, Brenton.
It's a good thing that time machines have not been invented yet, that we know of.
They never should be, right? It's a bad idea inventing a time machine, right? Only bad things can come of time travel.
Yes, I would say yes.
Imagine, because if you had a time machine, you'd be like, if I fuck up something, I can go back 10 seconds and make sure it never happens. But you know what I mean? It'd just be you'd create so many new timelines. And also, life, you would never fuck up. And that's kind of the point of life in a way as well. You need to make those mistakes.
What I feel like would be interesting with the whole time machine debate is that the thing that would answer for us, or for the time traveler, is actually how time works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would get a definitive answer of how this affects that. How many multiverses you're making or whatever, if that's, the case, or you might get a definitive answer. But I feel like that's the only good that might come of it. Potentially you don't know how far things could go wrong. And then on top of that, if time works in the certain ways that we think it does, we wouldn't even know. So who knows? Maybe I was not meant to drink this water right now in some other timeline. And maybe, because I will drink it now.
Oh, don't get me started on the butterfly effect.
Didn't drink the water.
Fuck, I don't want to talk about time travel anymore. Let's get into some special segments.
Special segment!
Ooh, so special. Brenton, do you reckon this movie would be a good theme park ride?
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
This feels like it was adapted from a theme park ride.
That's right. I feel like this theme park ride exists somewhere.
Probably.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's a small world, but in different time periods rather than nations.
I feel like this exists already. I can see the Bill and Ted animatronics being like, hey guys, let's go.
You know what? I'm surprised that Keanu Reeves hasn't just done a live show where he's just gone around America recreating his little presentation. You know what I mean? Because it would get bank.
Probably, yeah. He doesn't go on to have a famous film career or whatever, or become a movie star or star in John Wick. He just a traveling circus basically, in which he does this time travel act.
You know what, as well? I could see if this was a theme park ride, I wouldn't just have it as a roller coaster. I feel like this would be a live show that you get in the theme park with Keanu.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, and now, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Napoleon. And he just stumbles out,
Sure, it's one of those interactive shows that they have at Disney and stuff.
Yeah.
There's certain animatronics, there's certain technical things that happen during the show, but it's still in kind of a theater. Sure, it's a theater that's got tricks and bobs and everything, but yeah, I can see that for sure.
Would this work as a video game?
Yes and no. It could, but I don't know how good the video game would be. And I was over being in this universe after an hour and a half, right?
Yeah.
And any game is going to be much longer than that.
Oh my goodness. But also with a game, you could do... I feel like there's something you could do here. You travel to multiple time periods and you got to achieve a mission. I feel like Assassin's Creed kind of does this in a way. But they dedicate one game to each time period.
But imagine Assassin's Creed
with Bill and Ted.
But you're playing as Ted or Bill.
I'd love it if we could assassinate Bill or Ted. That'd make me want to play it. You think the target's the Pope or something like that, but then it turns out it's actually Ted.
Hey, Ubisoft, can you do an Assassin's Creed where there's an Easter egg somewhere that Bill and Ted just rock up at a point and you have to assassinate them?
Totally. This is most unfortunate. And they just get stabbed. Oh, jeez.
I didn't see that coming.
I just can't. Brenton, I want to introduce a new segment as well on this called This Movie Has a Broken Premise, which we haven't done the whole episode. We need to talk about the time travel rules, Brenton.
So what you're saying is this special segment can be anything that's broken in terms of a plot hole or something?
Just with the general premise.
Sure, but for this movie specifically, we need to get into time travel. Nathan, where do you want to start, buddy?
So the way this universe works is that you go back in time, you nick someone, you bring them back. Time passes as you time travel for some reason. They can't go back to when they left. For some reason, they have only 10 hours to time travel because that's how much time there is for the history exam. But not really. There's that. But also, when they put people back in the past, which we don't see, it doesn't affect the future?
No. Here's the thing. I think
So it must be a multiverse, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe the 10-hour thing derives from the fact maybe the time machine only works for 10 hours. Maybe there's only enough juice in it for 10 hours, potentially.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
true. Even though it's broken for half the movie.
Because again, they do go and they see themselves at a point, right? They go
Yeah.
back to the wrong point and they get out and they say, "G'day, how you going?" And it doesn't really do anything.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, there's no ramifications for them seeing themselves or anything like that. Like it kind of like it's like a paradox where like if they presume they are going to say the correct things because they do say the correct things. Like it's never really interrogated. And furthermore, in the second half of the movie, Keanu kind of realizes that he has this kind of power where if he reminds himself to do something in the future, it works as a Deus Ex Machina to get them out of a situation.
Which is
Which just because for some reason like a trash can appears out of nowhere to like go on his father, who's an asshole the whole movie. And like it's never really explored.
It's like this whole keys thing is set up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And you can tell that it's gonna fucking come up again at some
Yeah.
point. The keys were so annoying. He's like, "I don't have my keys," and it's like, well, you can't really do anything. Like, you can't get in your house, you can't get in your car. So like, how's the dad functioning without his keys? Like, it's just bizarre because he's still living his life. He's still doing things. That made no sense to me. Maybe something else, but it's always the keys, and I'm just like, oh,
Like,
God.
shut
Yeah.
up. Like, no one, like, I love it when he tries to book Napoleon. I'm like, because he's just not talking about the keys. It's like, when were you born? He's like, oh, Feb 14, like 1809, whatever it is. It's like, cool.
That dad's a shit character.
He really is, actually. Also, where's the mum? Is she just like, where's the original mother as well for Bill? Like, I don't know.
Maybe I like to think Bill's had a few mums.
I just can't. I really can't.
I actually reckon that's like the fifth stepmom.
Oh, and they get progressively younger. It's just so creepy. Like, that's the thing. So, like, you see you see them time travel and you see them go about, but also for some reason, time itself when they travel through the phone booth is represented as like these computer wires as they're like traveling through. But it's fine if you're like outside the phone booth as you travel through time. Like, there's no heat. Like, at one point, like, they got the historical figures literally riding the phone booth and it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, no one's injured in that process.
I had a question about that. Is specifically, did they call those like time, like they're like the time cords? Is how I would describe it, but did they call them like the timelines? Like there's like
I think so.
I can't remember the title they gave.
It's like with like shitty 80s CGI as well.
Oh man, it's so bad. It's bad.
So terrible.
Yeah, you're right. How did those people survive like hanging off the side of the time machine?
I don't know. There's no answer for it. Like, there's just no thought put into this kind of thing. Like, I think because today we're so used to movies like Interstellar and Arrival, like being so meticulous with their time travel, like regards to it. Even Endgame has like a better attitude towards time travel than this.
Look, I think it's always important in time travel, but it's important and it comes back to just simple storytelling. It's important to establish the rules of the world that you create. Every world needs rules, and I don't mean like, laws or legislation. I mean like rules in terms of like, we have gravity, we have this, we have that. Of rules of like that are consistent in storytelling so that you know what can and can't work. When you don't have those, like something like this, it just means anything's on the table, and again, the stakes are out the window. Like you don't care, because why should you? Because they didn't care enough to put the work in the first place. So again, we're having this conversation and we're kind of just going around in circles. We're kind of in a time loop now.
Oh no, Brenton. Oh no, let's get out of it. What stills this movie?
Ooh, it's blinding. So guys, what stills this movie is a segment on the show where Nathan or myself or both of us together sometimes.
Ooh, we hold hands.
We choose a still or a frame. Yeah, we do. We sure do. We hold frames and point. We hold hands. Sorry.
We hold hands and the frames. It's a team effort.
And we point at it and we go, "That's the one." Now we choose a still, a frame, a single frame from the film that we think is funny, that looks good, or it's just very poignant.
This is none of those things, Brenton.
You can find it on our social pages, links below. I'm so sorry. This episode, I think, is actually kind of getting to you.
I think it actually. I'm just flabbergasted, Brenton. I'm exhausted, to be honest with you.
It's gonna be okay, buddy.
We're gonna make it through. They go to medieval England, and I don't know. They're bloody doing Pirates of the Caribbean by this point. They're just bloody fucking about doing parkour around it. And like, at one point, like, I'm done. Can you do this, Brenton? I actually can't do this.
So for some reason, we have this shot of the time machine. Probably the most important thing that they need to get away with this. And because they just left it somewhere, at this point it is on a cart. It is tied with rope to a cart. And what's interesting about this as well is the way it's tied down. So it's obvious that like the props department or whatever has just tied this thing down, because you can see the ropes go under the roof.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at it closely, it's bizarre. Anyway, it's on a cart. There's a guy in an awful medieval costume with a terrible helmet on that is just like casually cutting.
It looks like Vader's helmet.
It does. It actually does. Yeah. Maybe it is Vader. Maybe Anakin Skywalker's
God.
back here.
I would. Like, could you imagine if Hayden Christensen rocked up? Like, I wish.
You will not take her from me.
What does he say to Padme? He's like, I am forever haunted by the kiss you gave me. He's just clinging to the phone booth. Like,
You turned her against me. You have done that yourself.
I would love a time travel movie with Obi and Anakin. Now, there's a film that needs to be made.
Maybe, hey, man, maybe in this new season of the Clone Wars. I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, I
maybe
have.
some shit gets crazy.
It's pretty, mate. You got to see the Siege of Mandalore. That's a good moment.
Oh, yeah?
bloody Ahsoka versus Darth Maul. I'll tell you what.
Oh,
That was a good ep.
sounds like a good time.
Ooh.
Back
But anyway, back to the
still.
still. Like, I laughed when I saw this, and I think that's why this is what stole this movie. But like, I just want to know what happened if like they just took where were they taking this phone booth? Like, were they gonna like chop it up? Like, what was the story here?
Potentially they were taking it to their ruler.
What is this object? Like, what is this thing someone's crafted?
Who would have seen this to take it away? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Like,
Maybe like what do they call them? The ugly medieval dudes? I think that's who he would have inspected. Oh, you know what's the worst thing about this movie? The fact that Keanu falls down the stairs and they stab the knight armor. And he's like, haha, I rolled out of it. I'm like, bullshit, Keanu. You don't just roll out of a fucking knight's armor. It's like, I just can't.
Nathan, it's better not to ask questions.
Well, hey.
Hey, let's look at this film's poster.
Brenton,
Yes,
let's look at this film's poster.
but is it art?
What the fuck is George Carlin in this poster, Brenton?
He's definitely my favorite part of this poster. In fact, I think that like if you just cropped out that image,
That should
of
be the
him in
poster.
not even. I think that should be our still for the week.
Oh my
Like,
god. This sums up the movie, frankly. Like,
it's all over the place, dude. So you have we're in the Milky Way.
yeah. For some reason, Earth, the Moon, and then Saturn are all next to each other. But also, if you look on the right of Keanu, there's also a second moon. Like, okay. And another Earth. Like above that as well.
Yeah, that is
With
Earth.
a third moon.
With another moon. Yeah, it's crazy. So they I think Bill and Ted forgot what planets are in our.
Did George Lucas design this poster and was like, we need like 5 more Earths. We need like 4 more moons.
There's another Saturn as well.
Yeah, and another Earth above George's
Yeah.
moon. What's going on here?
This is too good.
I can't do
this
it.
This is too
And then
good.
it's like, it's bloody Keanu and like Alex. What's their poses?
The time machine is blasting off. The telephone box is blasting off. They're sitting on top of it with one hand on their chest and one hand out in their weird gesture. Inside the telephone booth, Lincoln, Napoleon, Socrates, and Genghis, and they're all just hanging out. Socrates is doing the weirdest pose ever.
Yeah.
So wait, Napoleon's got his hand in his shirt. What's going on there?
What? Abe Lincoln looks horrified.
Yeah. Abe Lincoln's probably got the most normal pose out of the lot of them, to be honest. Like,
Yeah, but his facial expression is definitely like, fuck
Priceless.
me. Like, this is not good news.
anyway, so they're blasting off, and the tagline is, history is about to be rewritten by 2 guys who can't spell.
But underneath the title is a second like log line, which is time flies when you're having fun.
Now, that's a good one. I
That's a better one.
respect that tagline. I think that's a good time. But personally, I'm not going to be hanging this on my wall anytime soon.
No.
This is all.
This is horrendous.
I kind of love it so over the place in terms of its like placement of all these different Earths and all the different Saturns and all the different moons, because it's kind of like this film. It sums it up. It's just all over the place.
It's just
nothing makes sense. Just throw it in.
You couldn't have said it better, Brenton. So title talk.
Ooh, it's the title.
I hate this title. I don't like it at all. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
It sounds so basic, like a 5-year-old wrote it. Like,
I don't know.
Maybe a 5-year-old did write it. Maybe that's where they got the title from.
I feel like, you know the title for the film, Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah. Which, by the way, is a better movie than this.
Yeah, I agree. So I feel like a title like that is like more apt for this.
Dude, where's my phone booth? But you know what? As far as the title talk element of it goes, they do say excellent quite a lot. So like,
That's true. Yeah.
What, did they have an excellent adventure? You know what? They didn't have an excellent adventure. If someone recounted this to me as a story, I wouldn't call that adventure excellent.
I feel like Bill and Ted is the good part of the title. Like, it needs to be Bill and Ted.
I think you need to replace excellent with a different adjective. I think it needs to be like Bill and Ted's like convoluted adventure. Or like subpar.
I was going to say subpar.
Can we just call it Bill and Ted's fuck up? Because it's just them fucking up history. That's what the whole thing is.
I'm down with that. I'm going to do a Photoshop, change that part of the poster, and then put it on my wall, I think.
Well done. We did it.
Let's pass that power to the people.
pass it here.
What?
The power to the people.
I'm looking at the tomato meter.
He's looking.
I'm beside myself because
I can't
critically it
believe
has a score of 79% with an audience score of 75%. What the fuck? Why did
What
this get
is
so many
going
positive
on?
reviews?
There's obviously a big fan base for this, and I just want to hear from them. I just want to hear from them and be told why.
Guys, tweet at us. Like, tell us why you love
we're
this movie.
begging you. we need to hear what's going on.
Look at the box office. It had a budget
Jesus.
of 6.5 million and made 40.5 million. So this was popular, you know? Like, people went and saw this film.
Let's hear some opinions. Larry Carroll from countingdown.com, he gave it 4 out of 5, Brenton. He's one of them. And he said, still funny after all these years. This is the rare kind of movie that you could watch along with your kids and actually feel like you're teaching them something.
Oh, Larry.
Larry.
No.
What a larrikin.
Larry, what are you on, mate? Like, that's...
What are they learning? What are they learning? What not to do with time travel?
This movie doesn't teach you anything.
I feel sorry for the kids who like learn historical basis from like this film. You know, like
He also says this is the rare kind of movie as well. So I don't know what other films he's been showing his kids to teach them things.
it's like, what are you giving them? Like Eyes Wide Shut? It's like Jesus. Like you gotta. There's way better edutainment movies you can give kids, including docos, furthermore, which you could just give a kid that they'd find interesting. It's like...
Including biopics that you could give your kids that would teach you more about a certain person in history than this shit.
Oh, there's great kids entertainment out there that's educational.
Night at the Museum teaches you more about the historical figures in that film than this piece of shit ever does.
Tenfold, yeah. Watch the whole Night at the Museum trilogy. Do that.
Okay, that was a ridiculous excerpt from a ridiculous review. Like, what a statement. But Kevin Carr might top it.
Oh my God.
From 7M Pictures, when he says, with a positive review, still relatable today. Nathan, this film has never been relatable. What is there to relate to about what?
I have
is
no
going
idea
on?
what I empathize with in this film. Like, oh yeah, that's relatable. Like, I've always wanted to go to like a sports store and like beat up the mannequin. Like, that's really relatable, isn't it?
Nathan, I feel like I'm Mugatu at the end of Zoolander when he's all like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I feel like I'm from another multiverse or something in which our universe everyone loves this movie for some reason.
And we're just
It's
like,
bizarre.
what has happened? Like, what is going on?
GGR gives it half stars and says it is the most ridiculous movie I have ever seen and is one of my favorite movies of all time. Look, it is a ridiculous film, but then to call it one of your favorites of all time? What?
I can see how people think like this might be so ridiculous it's good.
Maybe, but mate, he gave it 3.5 stars and he says it's one of his favorite films of all time.
I mean, you know, we're all, you know, love what you want. You know, if it's his favorite film, more power to him. I wish it was, you know what? If he's loving it for the ridiculousness, I wish it was more ridiculous.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
forget the history exam. Just have them fuck about through time the whole movie. If you're going to make it ridiculous, just do that.
I'm totally with you, man.
David F., he gave it 2 stars and he wrote, goofy comedy with some nostalgia value only. I think that's it. I think it's just nostalgia, maybe. Like, and I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, you only like it for nostalgic reasons. Because obviously there's more to it than that. But like, you know...
I do know, actually. Yeah, I agree that like we can't just put it on nostalgia. Maybe people just have nostalgia because, again, we don't know the reasons really why people love this. Like, the positive reviews here say it's relatable.
and educational, which like...
Which is like, you know, so please tell us because I need to understand it. Lena7623 says, I'm a college graduate in history and to this day I still pronounce Socrates wrong initially because of this movie. That's its lasting power. I'm still not sure how I feel about that. That's a really funny story, actually, because...
Yeah. They say like Socrates, I think.
Yeah, I feel like when they say it wrong, I wanted that joke to be right. I wanted them to actually go back in time and for Socrates to be like, yeah, like that's my name. Like, and that's how they all pronounce it. Like, that would have been really funny.
Yeah.
But then they didn't
But
do
again,
that,
they
so-
just do nothing with it. And lastly, Nathan Terrell wrote on YouTube, this is what happens if Neo took the other pill. And you know what?
really
He's
funny.
probably not wrong. And I kind of want to see that movie as well. Like, for some reason, that'd be great. Like, at the end of it, Keanu wakes up and it turns out this was Matrix 4.
I feel like that's funny. Like that is hilarious. And I'd kind of want to see the crossover, like, because Matrix 4 and Bill and Ted 3 are coming out, right?
Yeah.
So, like, there's links between them both.
That'd be great. Like, the Wachowskis decided to build a cinematic universe. So, like, fuck it could work. Like,
Screw it. Let's do it. Yeah, why not, man?
it wouldn't hurt either film, to be honest. Like, if you compare Bill and Ted to the Matrix sequels, it's like, they could both only improve from here.
That's true. I think Bill and Ted has got one up on the Matrix sequels, though. Actually, no, you're kind of right. They're kind of in the same zone of just like insanity.
It really is. Like they could only benefit from this crossover, you know? Like I debated putting in the special segment.
Do it, guys.
Like Brenton, I debated putting in the special segment MCU, but then I thought about it and I'm like, I don't want these fuckers anywhere near the MCU.
No, absolutely not.
Oh.
No, thank you at all.
But put them in the Matrix universe. You know, they can go play there.
Why not? Come on, Warner Brothers, make it happen.
Make it happen.
For now, that was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Oh, Bill and Ted's fuck up, as we like to call it.
Yeah, I do like to call it
I'm
that.
exhausted, Brendan. Just wrap us up and take us home.
There's never been a time that I want to know more, though, what our audience thinks of a film. So
Yeah.
let us know what you think. Let us know if you like this movie, why you like this movie. I just need to understand. I think Nathan's had enough, though, so...
I'm so fucking
We're
done.
gonna go...
It's not even like Lamb Before Time or Breakfast Club anger I feel for this movie. It's just general. I feel like I've eaten like a bad fruit. You know what I mean? And my stomach is in pain.
Yeah.
And I just got to shit it out. I feel like that.
Nathan will be back next week, guys. He'll be back in...
After some bowel movements.
He just needs to do his dump and he'll be good. So until then...
Jesus Christ. That's a soundbite I'm grabbing for this episode.
Until then, stay safe. Listen to some other episodes from nicer times. And yeah, we can't wait to hear from you. So that's us out. It's classic movie banter and not wild stallions. See you later, guys.